What up, TCK Potters? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Sky Guasco, joined by my man, Jay Della, a.k.a. Jordan Della Valley. You can find us on Twitter at our name handles, Sky Guasco, SkyGuasco. And you can find Jordan at J Della Valley 7, J Della Valley 7 on Twitter. We are breaking down the preview for Week 6 Thursday Night Football between the Bucs and Jordan's Eagles. We're also going to dive into our starts of the week at each position, a sit of the week at any particular position, and then, of course, give you some QB and tight end streamers. Now, if you're tuning in and you're like, yo, where's Buck and Bob? Buck and Bob swapped out with us, so they're actually going to be doing our episode that you're used to, and we're going to be doing their episode that you're used to. So we're swapping up a little bit, trying to keep things fresh here on the TCK Pod. If you have not yet, please leave a 5-star rate and review anywhere you listen to your podcast via the Believe Podcast Network. And also make sure to like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter on the Fantasy Focused channels. We much appreciate it. Once again, Sky Guasco and Jordan Della Valley bringing you episode 472 of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Networks. Jordan, we got a big one here for your Eagles on Thursday Night Football. The Eagles have been playing good football at times and pretty dreadful football at the same time in other games. And then the Buccaneers have been just dominant as we expected. This is going to be a tough one for NFL purposes, but for fantasy, let's break it down real quick here and try to, as an Eagles fan, give me how you're feeling about this game. And then, of course, as an analyst here, let's break it down for fantasy. We'll start with your Eagles, and then we'll go to the Tampa Bay Bucs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as an Eagles fan, it's a tough matchup. I mean, yes, we've been playing decent enough football to be 2-3, right? Even in some of those losses, look good against your San Francisco 49ers. Didn't look so great against Dallas, but coming into a matchup against Tampa Bay, I mean, pretty much never going to feel great about facing Brady and those Bucs, reigning Super Bowl champions. Feel a little bit better in the fact that their pass defense at least is a little banged up. Obviously, with our run offense and the way that Nick Sirianni's been play calling. There we go. We haven't been running the ball much anyway. A lot of teams seem to completely abandon run against the Bucs as they should. So it kind of plays well with how we've been playing. I still just don't feel great about the outlook for the Eagles in terms of NFL purposes. For fantasy, I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to have that rushing floor, even though the Bucs run defense is good against running backs. Mobile quarterbacks I feel great about starting, especially wide receivers in this game. Devonta Smith, I feel good about, spoiler alert, Zach Ertz, with Goddard being out for COVID reasons. But, I mean, other than those three, you're kind of just taking a shot in the dark at most of these guys on the Eagles offense.
I agree. Jalen Hurts is good for me, 21-plus fantasy points in each of his performances so far in his career. Question in the backfield, Jordan. Everyone knows how I feel about Miles Sanders, but I personally would rather have Kenny Gainwell in general. I know that's not a popular opinion, but Kenny Gainwell this week in particular than Miles Sanders. Nobody runs on the Bucs. We know that.
Yep.
If the Eagles are going to catch up and use their running backs at all, I think it's going to have to be flares out of the backfield. So are you confident with either one of these running backs, and if so, who?
This week, I mean, I'd be more confident in Kenny Gainwell for the reasons that you outlined, right? If there's going to be a pass game, if there's going to be a running back out of the backfield for the Eagles that's going to be more productive, it's more likely to be Kenny Gainwell. Season long, I'd obviously still prefer to hold on to Sanders. I mean, hopefully, Sirianni starts to call more run plays. Hopefully there's just, a little bit more involving Sanders. I mean, I saw a tweet the other day that was like Miles Sanders was doing an ad for Walmart, and someone was like, because of Sirianni's play calling, we got Miles Sanders doing ads for Walmart. He could be doing ads for Nike, but they just won't give him the ball.
Yeah, makes sense. And unfortunately, I mean, they're only, they're giving their backfield less than 20 opportunities a game. And of course, he's not Lamar Jackson, but Jalen Hurts obviously adds that rushing floor, so that helps there. Are you comfortable with Devonta Smith and with Zach Ertz coming in for Dallas Goedert being out on COVID protocols? Are you okay starting Ertz here, who has more or less been 50-50 last couple of weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for Devonta Smith, I mean, you almost have to be. Tampa Bay's pass defense has not been, what it was last year. A lot of that secondary is banged up. I mean, Richard Sherman is playing for them, right?
Yeah.
And I was not Richard Sherman of 5 years ago. This is like, how old is he now? 32. But anyway, so I feel good about Devonta Smith. If there's going to be a wide receiver that's going to have a good game, obviously Devonta is the most likely to have that big game out of that receiving core for the Eagles. I am comfortable with starting Zach Ertz. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. He is my streamer this week for later in the show. So I'll stick around. I'll get into it a little bit more.
Got it. On the other side for the Buccaneers, you're starting all 3 wide receivers. You're starting Tom Brady, obviously. Are you playing, let's say, Cameron Brate with Gronkowski being out? Are you playing any of these running backs? And if so, which running back do you want for the Buccaneers?
Yeah, I mean, for the tight ends, I mean, you're taking a shot at them scoring in the end zone, right? And unless you have like a Kelsey, a Waller, Kittle's hurt, but unless you have some of those top tier tight ends, I mean, we even look at the emergence of Dawson Knox over the last couple of weeks. I mean, largely been driven by touchdowns and end zone targets, right? So is Cameron Brate going to score a touchdown is going to be whether or not you're happy with his fantasy day. If he doesn't score and goes 3 for 30 or something like that, I mean, I think that's probably what he's going to do if he doesn't score a touchdown is not really what you're hoping for. You're not going to be happy with it. That said, like top 12 tight ends, assuming you're in like a 12-team league, so top 12 tight ends being you had one of the best tight ends, it was a startable tight end. Most often, or like they rotate in and out every week just based on at the bottom half of that list of who's scoring a touchdown that week, right? It could be Cameron Brate. It could be Mo Alley Cox. But at least with Brate, you know that the Buccaneers offense is likely going to be able to drive the ball down the field against this Eagles defense and going to have a lot of opportunities. Now, if the targets in the end zone go to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, then it's just not going to be the week for Cameron Brate. But at least they're going to be around the end zone. Brady's been targeting the tight end. I mean, it's been Gronk mostly, but even still in the last couple of weeks without Gronk has targeted Brate in the end zone. So if you need to start Brate because your other options aren't fantastic, known commodities and involved in their offense, I'm fine starting Brate this weekend.
Right.
I guess this week.
And are you going to let your Eagles fandom pick the Eagles here, or are you going with the Buccaneers in this game overall?
My heart's going to pick the Eagles. My brain, my wallet, if I were betting, would pick the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I got you too. I'm going to jump in the comments here before we move on here. Our man Beach coming in from Twitch. Always appreciate you. I do a show later in the week with Chris Benavides, our good friend from the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast, and we run through all the previews of the games. Beach has been chiming in here on every single game, every single week, giving score predictions, which I think is super fun as we do our pick'ems as well. Beach, I'm sure you are tuning in at home and paying attention, but I have you down at 8-7 last week, so about 500 there. I have you with wins for the Buccaneers, the Vikings, the Patriots, the Packers, Chargers, Cardinals, Cowboys, Bills, and Ravens, and then L's elsewhere, but pretty much teamed up with Chris and I as well. I think we got you by just a game or two, but always appreciate you. That is coming up later, and actually Bobby is going to handle that episode this week. So Bobby and Chris Beach will be with you for the preview of this week, so tune in tomorrow for that one. But if you'd like to give us a Thursday night prediction, we always appreciate that as well. So go ahead and get it done. All right, everybody else, Fragger tuning in here, Mike Ortiz. We got some other players, Lit Fantasy. Some of y'all tuning in. We will get to your questions per usual. Please wait until the end here. And if you skip out or you miss our question, feel free to hit Jordan or I up on Twitter for personal advice. Sky Guasco on Twitter and at J Della Valley with an E, not a Y, 7. J Della Valley 7, and we'll hit you with the personal questions. All right, that gives us our Thursday night preview here from the Buccaneers and the Eagles. Tom Brady 8-1 on NFL Network broadcast since 2012. Not looking good for the Eagles, unfortunately, Jordan. But hey, that's why they play the games. You never know. This one is in Philly, so hopefully you have a little bit of work there. So we'll see what happens. All right, before we move on, I'm going to give a shout out to our good friends at the Jersey Jungle. If you've been listening to the show for quite some time, you know that I rep the Jersey Jungle every single episode that I'm on. The Jersey Jungle are on Instagram. That's where they handle their business, at the Jersey Jungle. My man Trenton will take care of you. Good dude. Sometimes it takes him a couple days to get back. He's a very busy man, but he will get back to you. Use the promo code TCK, the letters TCK, for 10 to 15% off of 1 or 2 jerseys and 15% off of 3+ jerseys. These are authentic jerseys. You can see behind me, I have Justin Herbert and Devontae Adams. They're stitch and twill. They are not the iron pressed on decal jerseys that rub off in the dryer. These are stitch and twill high quality jerseys. You can see on Justin Herbert, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter, you can see the bolts, right, heading over the shoulder pads there, because that's what the powder blue jersey has for the Chargers. So authentic jerseys, game-worn jerseys, all jerseys, hockey, basketball, football, baseball. They have world soccer as well. They have rookies available for the NFL right now. They also have throwback jerseys too. So if you're into collecting jerseys like I am, make sure you go to the Jersey Jungle on Instagram, the Jersey Jungle. Use the promo code TCK when you send them a message. Ask them about a player. Maybe it's a Tom Brady. You're looking for a Patriots throwback. That red jersey's pretty fire. Or you want a creamsicle new age one. Just ask him if he's got it in stock, your size. He'll tell you yes or no. And then tell him TCK sent you, and he'll get you 10 to 15% off of your jerseys that are already half the price. Once again, the Jersey Jungle on Instagram. All right, Jordan, let's get in here. We have we are stepping in for Buck and Bob. Buck and Bob tuning in next week, maybe back here. Buck's got the week off, but we are now doing the streamers and the starts of the week this week. You're used to hearing Buck and Bob on Thursdays, but it is us today, and I'm stoked to do this one, man. We'll mix it up a little bit here. So, Jordan, why don't you pop up your start of the week at the quarterback position? Who is it and why?
Absolutely. And my start of the week at the quarterback position, smooth transition here, is Tom Brady of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Thursday night against the Eagles. Looking at the Eagles defense right now, they're actually not performing too badly against the quarterback position in terms of fantasy points given up. They're right now 10th against or 10th in the league in terms of fantasy points against the quarterback position. But if you look at who they've played, you'll start to understand why they're ranked 10th. So week 1, played Atlanta, who Atlanta looked terrible. They were able to get pressure on Matt Ryan and that offensive line. And so I had a good week there. But after that, played your 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo put up 20 points against the Eagles. And again, another game where they did pretty well. I mean, I think off the top of my head, I think you guys only had 2 touchdowns. Both of them happened to be pass touchdowns by Garoppolo. But I mean, in a game where the Eagles defense still played pretty well against the 49ers offense, Jimmy Garoppolo was able to put up 20 points. Next week, they played Dallas. And not the Dallas where they were throwing the ball all over the field. Dak Prescott threw 26 passes, 26 pass attempts, also 20 points. They relied more on the run game. And we know that the Buccaneers obviously are not that team. They're not going to be relying on Leonard Fournette. And God, no, they're not going to be relying on Ronald Jones. So they're going to be passing the ball a lot more. If you're giving Tom Brady 30-plus attempts, 35 attempts against this Eagles defense, I'd expect him to put up more like what Pat Mahomes did. 31 points, right? Terrible showing by the Eagles defense, but you start to see when a more prolific offense can play against this Eagles defense. Yes, we did well against Atlanta. We did well against a good offense in San Francisco, but as we start to play Dallas and Kansas City, we've given up more points. And then obviously Brady coming off of his 410-5 against 410 yards, 5 touchdowns against Miami last week. I don't see how he doesn't keep rolling here against the Eagles defense.
I agree. And actually, I'm going to bring up something really quick here. Our boy Mike Ortiz tuning in on YouTube. Appreciate you chiming in, Mike. Are you guys taking the Eagles to win the game? No, we're both going to take the Buccaneers. But a good point here. JPP out, and the Bucs have 4 other defensive injuries. I still think the Buccaneers overall win the game because I just think they're a better all-around team and coached. But this is a good point. I think this helps Tom Brady because if they can't get the pressure that they're used to on Jalen Hurts and he's able to make plays and put up points, then Tom Brady's going to keep throwing versus a Leonard Fournette game. And the Eagles' run defense is usually traditionally pretty solid. So I do like Tom Brady here in this one as well. I'm going to stick in the flames here with my man, Justin Herbert. I just mentioned him in the Jersey Jungle read. I got him right behind me if you're watching on video here. Justin Herbert at the Ravens, the number 1 overall quarterback last week against the Browns in a shootout. Carson Wentz put up 400 passing yards on those Ravens. Carson Wentz is not somebody that usually puts over 300, let alone 4. If you watch that game on Monday night, you know that the Colts really were dominating that first half. Should have frankly won the game at the end, but Lamar just got absolutely on fire, and then he took over the game. Justin Herbert last week, nearly 400 yards, 398, 4 touchdowns. I don't think there's anyone out here that can cover Mike Williams right now. Keenan Allen, of course. You got Eckler out of the backfield as well. And Donald Parham is going to be just fine as well. And, if Jared Cook's on 100%. And really the Chargers overall are just on fire as a team. 4-1 this year. Last year, Herbert had a tough rookie season in the win-loss column, of course, winning the Rookie of the Year. But they lost almost all of their games by less than a touchdown last year. This year, they're winning the close games. The Chargers are on fire. Justin Herbert is that dude. And again, with Carson Wentz putting up 400 plus on the Ravens last week, I think Justin Herbert can do the same in back-to-back weeks. So we're going to go with Tom Brady at the Eagles this evening and Justin Herbert against the Ravens. Let's move on to the running backs here, Jordan. Who do you have as your start of the week at the running back position?
The start of the week for me at the running back position is going to be Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. So again, I'm putting together a similar analysis here of looking at the matchup and points given up against the position. So Jonathan Taylor gets Houston this week. Obviously, we know Houston to be a poor football team, but they are 20th against the running back in terms of fantasy points against over the last 4 weeks. And so looks like a average, like a little bit above average matchup, but let's even look at who Houston has played in those 4 weeks. New England, Buffalo, Carolina, and Cleveland. And so New England, Damian Harris and crew, like they didn't have a great game against Houston. Then they're also just not a prolific run offense. Buffalo, same thing with Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. Zach Moss found the end zone in that game, which helped out his fantasy production. But again, not a strong running back team, right? Then Carolina, that was the game CMC got injured. So didn't have to face him, was facing Chuba Hubbard in his first, essentially first NFL action. And then obviously the Cleveland game was the one 4 weeks ago. In that game, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt combined for 24 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. When you throw in the receiving work, they combined for 22.1 fantasy points. Jonathan Taylor does not really have that same Chubb-Hunt split, obviously, in his backfield. Nyheim Hines is there, but for the most part, Hines either shows up or doesn't. And so for the most part, it's not like a 60-40 split that Chubb and Hunt are seeing in Cleveland. And so when we look at the type of running backs that Houston has faced and the fantasy production that those meddling running backs, for lack of a better word, have been able to produce, I'm extremely confident and obviously excited to start Jonathan Taylor this week as being that stud running back for the Colts. Has been involved in the pass game, had that 75-yard pass touchdown to start the game against Baltimore last week. So that's why Jonathan Taylor's my start of the week. Start of the week here for the running back position.
And that pass production is massive, obviously. Derrick Henry's already the best fantasy running back, but him getting, 4, 5, 6 targets a game now has elevated him beyond where Derrick Henry even used to be. And if Jonathan Taylor starts to trend up in pass production as well, he again is going to take that next level. Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb are kind of the same running back. Nick Chubb can also take a little flare screen 80 yards to the house, but Kareem Hunt gets that work. Nyheim Hines is just not Kareem Hunt, as you mentioned right there. So I do like that. Jonathan Taylor versus the Texans this week. And traditionally, the Colts do beat up on the Texans. So if they get a big lead, they could be running out with JT in the second half. I think that's a great call there. All right, we'll go to my running back start of the week, and it is Najee Harris. I've been on the Najee train since spring. I, drafted him everywhere I could, but he was a first-round draft pick, and a lot of times I went with Devontae Adams there, if not a top 5 running back. So I don't have a ton of shares, unfortunately, but in the 2 dynasty leagues I was in, I was able to get him early, which I am excited about moving forward. Going up against the Seahawks, running back 3 in PPR right now, Najee Harris. Everybody was concerned about the offensive line. We were concerned about this offense in general. Was he actually going to catch any passes like the running backs have traditionally in Pittsburgh? And I had said over the summer, I'm also worried about the offensive line. But guess what? Mike Tomlin has a certain mold that he has for these running backs, and it's use them on 3 downs, use them the entire game, use them in passing production, use them on the goal line. We saw it with Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams back in the day, James Conner, and so forth. This is what Najee Harris can do. And there were multiple interviews over the summer where people were asking him, like, can you actually catch passes? And Najee Harris would always kind of literally laugh it off and be like, man, you guys are always bringing that up. Just because I didn't catch passes at Alabama, that's not how they use running backs. But I can do it. I did it in high school, yada, yada, and I'm an athlete. Well, now we're seeing it. Obviously, 19 targets a couple weeks ago. So he is dominating. The Seahawks give up the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. He has the most targets and receptions per game among running backs. He has 7.8 targets per game. A running back has almost 8 targets per game, which is phenomenal. And now they have no Juju Smith-Schuster, who's going to be out for the season effectively with a shoulder surgery. Those short area targets that Big Ben is, peppering their offense with are going to go now to whoever plays the slot, but it's also going to be Najee Harris out of the backfield. So Najee Harris to me is going to continue to ride the wave. I think he's a top, 5 to 8 running back the rest of the season. Right now, currently number 3. And I think you're absolutely thrilled. And I think he's exceeded expectations, especially in PPR leagues because of the passing work here. But I'm going to ride the wave here. I think the Seahawks are going to be in trouble here without Russell Wilson. And if the Steelers do get a lead, I don't think Geno Smith's going to be able to bring it back on this defense. They're in Pittsburgh for this one. It's a long trip for the West Coast team to go east. I think it's a big day for Najee Harris, and he's my start of the week at the running back position. Okay, let's get into the wide receivers here. And I'm gonna let you go first here as well. Give me your wide receiver start of the week.
We'll go from one rookie to the next. My wide receiver start of the week is Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Both have been phenomenal.
They have, and I think probably Jamar hasn't probably exceeded expectations as much as Najee has, but I think that's also a lot of the taintedness of coming into preseason, all the drops, and everyone started getting worried then about that. But obviously, once we got into the regular season, we've obviously moved past that. Looking at Jamar Chase and his stats and the type of player that he's been is he's been both the reliable target guy, gets a lot of targets. So if you're in a PPR league, is probably going to have that floor, but also has been the big play type of wide receiver as well. Has a catch of over 30 yards in every game, but also has a catch of over 40 yards in 4 out of his 5 games. And so not saying that he's going to get a catch of over 30 yards every week in and week out, but you at least have the ability, if you're not getting the targets, if you're getting shut down, to at least put up that one big play that at least saves your week and makes it a mediocre week if he doesn't go off. That said, he's been consistently targeted every game. He's averaging 7 targets a game. Obviously, him and Joe Burrow been playing at LSU, if you want to call it a narrative or whatever. There is a connection there between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. The timing, knowing the wide receiver, knowing the routes, knowing the speed is just something that, for being in year 2 for Burrow and the rookie year for Jamar Chase, I think has significantly helped them compared to any other young wide receiver quarterback combo. And so I think the combination of being able to have that big play, but also the consistent targets week in and week out, makes Jamar Chase reliable and exciting. You add on top of that this week he gets to play Detroit. You start your guys against Detroit. Like there's nothing else I can say about that. They're not a good defense. I would expect Jamar Chase to break out a long touchdown here, probably 40, 50 yards, and then also, accumulate another 40 to 50 through the rest of his 6 targets this game.
The only concern you might have about Jamar Chase or the Bengals passing offense is if Joe Mixon's healthy and if they ride Joe Mixon, because the Lions are so bad at protecting the run. But with, Samaje Perine coming in and whatever. And honestly, I mean, the Lions have been in all 5 of the games that they've lost this year. If the Bengals slip up or they don't play 100%, the Lions could steal a game in this one. They've been competitive in all games. And obviously Dan Campbell, emotional and firing up his squad last week. So we'll see what we get.
Sure.
I think people forget, especially at this point, we're 5-6 weeks into the NFL season. People forget Jamar Chase sat out due to COVID concerns, missed an entire season, didn't have Joe Burrow for a while. He had the drop issues, and now we're coming in and he's got that rapport back with Joe Burrow from LSU, as you mentioned. He's now is up to NFL speed. My boy T. Higgins has been out or limited for the last 3 weeks. And Tyler Boyd is awesome. And he's a fun wide receiver 3. Bobby's been repping him all summer, but he's just not up to the level of Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. So now Joe Burrow has had extra reps with Jamar Chase being that number 1, and he really has shown the ability to do that. There is a case that maybe the Bengals have 2 number 1 wide receivers with Tyler Boyd, who could be a number 2 with anybody else. He just happens to be a number 3 in this squad. So, man, they're loaded, and he looks absolutely phenomenal, and certainly in the rookie of the year contention. I think him and Najee Harris leading the pack right now. All right, let's move on to mine here. And I'm going to stick in this game this evening here. We got the Eagles and the Buccaneers coming up in just a little bit here as we record. If you're listening back on the podcast side, then it's probably after the fact. But if you're listening live here, I'm going to go Devonta Smith tonight. The Bucs have given up the 3rd most fantasy points to wide receivers. Now, that stat jumps off the page like, wow, they're really bad against wide receivers. You have to always take this with a grain of salt. The reality is nobody can, so nobody does run on them. So the only way that you can A, catch up with Brady in the offensive points, and B, move the ball down the field is to pass. So when you pass 40, 50 times against this team, you're going to get chunk yards. They're still winning the game, so people aren't scoring too much, but that's why they're 3rd in fantasy points. But, when you kind of throw in the DVOA and the averages and everything else, they're about league average. Nonetheless, the only chance the Eagles are going to have tonight to put up points and move the ball is going to be to throw, and that's going to be to Devonta Smith and I think Zach Ertz. But Devonta Smith, to me, 18 targets over the last 2 weeks and 14 receptions over the last 2 weeks. He's clearly the number 1 option there. Philadelphia is going to have to throw to keep up. They're going to have to throw early and often. They're not going to be able to run the ball, as we mentioned earlier, with Miles Sanders. It's probably going to be Kenny Gainwell out of the backfield against Tampa Bay tonight. So I'm going to stick with your boy here, man. I think he could have a big game. But let's be honest, man. Todd Bowles, the highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL for a reason, he's going to look at the squad and be like, who's the number 1? And it's either Devonta Smith or Zach Ertz. They're going to double team one or both of them and make Jalen Hurts beat them. Could be tough if they do that, but I think Devonta Smith is just a supreme talent. He's going to get open enough. 5, 6, 8 targets. Hopefully he gets 80 yards and a touchdown or 2 in this game. I'm just hoping that the volume is going to be there for him tonight. We'll pause here really quickly. Do you see Devonta Smith? Is he somebody that you would feel comfortable enough? And let me maybe throw a couple names at you here. Let me find them in my rankings, and I'll throw a couple guys at you. Where are you, Devonta Smith? Okay, quickly, just off the cuff here. Devonta Smith tonight or Robert Woods at the Giants?
Smith tonight. I mean, Woods had the big blow-up week last week. It could easily just flip right back to be a cup week. They could also be way ahead of that Giants team without Saquon Barkley, without Kenny Golladay, maybe without Slayton still. So they might be just relying on Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel. I'd take Devonta Smith and what I think is going to be the larger opportunity in target share.
Brandon Cooks at the Colts.
Smith.
Michael Pittman at the Texans. Same game.
Pittman.
Adam Thielen at the Panthers.
Smith.
All right, and T. Higgins versus the Lions.
Smith.
All right, there we go. Okay, that is my start of the week at the wide receiver position. Jordan, let's give into our tight ends here, and then we'll take another quick break. Give me your tight end start of the week.
Tight end start of the week is going to be T.J. Hawkinson.
Oh, man, we need it. We need it, bro.
And that's exactly why almost exactly why. I mean, it is my start of the week because I think he's going to have a good week, but he's also my start of the week because the T.J. Hawkinson owners need this boost of confidence to be able to start him again, right? You drafted him high, expecting the breakout. Usually drafted as the tight end 5 or 6, maybe even 4 if some people liked him more than Andrews, and you had the extreme high of a great start to the season, a great week 1. And since then you've had 2 for 20, 3 for 60. It just hasn't been there for Hawkinson recently. And so half of the reason why this is my start of the week is to give you that boost of confidence to keep him in your starting lineup against Cincinnati this week. Quintez Cephas is now out. Tyrell Williams is still on the IR. Pretty much their only options in the receiving game outside of obviously the running backs is rookie Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, who had 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago. But, I mean, T.J. Hawkinson, it has to be their their best option in the receiving game, if not number 2, right behind DeAndre Swift. A lot of the reason why his usage the past couple of weeks or fantasy production hasn't been there the last couple of weeks is because his usage has been mostly in the block pass protection game. He just hasn't been running as much routes as I think everyone expected him to be running, especially for a team that was expected to be behind and passing a lot. So this week, coming into Cincinnati, I think with the other wide receiving options out, I think Dan Campbell and the Lions are going to have to free up Hawkinson and involve him in the pass game more, even if it does mean taking him out of pass protection. On top of that, Cincinnati is 5th best in fantasy points against the tight end position, but the tight end position is a little bit unique, and we've talked about defenses being where they rank in points against wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, but tight end is a little bit different because for the most part, there's usually one on a team. There's not like 2 running backs splitting the work. It's usually one guy, and if that defense has faced Travis Kelce, they're probably not going to look good in the defensive rankings, fantasy points against. Cincinnati has played Green Bay, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Minnesota. So the way that Green Bay has been using Robert Tonyan this year, he hasn't looked great. He's not having a good season. Jacksonville's tight end has been in and out of James O'Shaughnessy. Dan Arnold now is in the mix there. Pittsburgh's with Ebron and Pat Freiermuth, rookie. And then Chicago with is Jimmy Graham is still even on the roster, right? And Cole Kmet. And then Minnesota obviously was expecting Irv Smith and now have had to pull in Conklin as their tight end. So they haven't really faced any top tight ends yet this season. So of course they're going to be 5th best when they've played offenses that don't really use the tight end or don't have great tight ends. Now they're going to be facing Detroit, who should be looking to use TJ Hawkinson, who has the talent level to put up a good game. So it'll be interesting to see, Hawkinson this week, and I'd be comfortable starting now. If it doesn't get done this week, now we can talk about moving on, try to package him with a different trade or something like that. I know there's a question in the comments a little bit earlier, trying to find it now. It's basically a Hawkinson or Knox this week, and I just think the matchup with Hawkinson, there it is. The matchup for Hawkinson is better than Knox, and I think Knox is broken out. But again, I mentioned it's been mostly the touchdowns. If Knox doesn't get if both tight ends don't put up a touchdown, right? You're telling me I know neither one's going to score a touchdown. I want Hawkinson because I think he's going to be more involved in the pass and have more passing game and have more targets.
Yeah, I am a manager of Hawkinson in 2 leagues, and I generally had that. I had that mindset of going tight end early. I did that in every single one of my 8 leagues. The only league I didn't do that is an ultra flex league that you and I are trying out this year.
I have a lot of that league.
A lot of fun. I just went for all the other positions other than tight end because you don't have to start a tight end in that league. So I think I have like Higbee and I think that's it maybe for my tight end. Maybe Cole Kmet just as a swap there, but you don't even need to start a tight end. The issue I have with Hawkinson, unfortunately, Jordan, you mentioned him pass blocking more often, and that's an issue with Kittle as well. Mm-hmm. 11 targets in week 1, 9 targets in week 2, 2 targets in week 3, 8 targets in week 4, but just 4 receptions for 42 yards. And last week, 3 targets for just 2 receptions. So having just 2 receptions in 2 of the last 3 weeks is the issue there. And you mentioned the Bengals haven't really played anybody. So hopefully it's a breakout scenario for Hawkinson. I'm still playing him because you have to. Another thing is he's got a bit of a knee injury right now. So they might be limiting his work and running out of the backfield as much as they can. But all it takes for a tight end is a touchdown. And we know the Hawkinson is definitely a goal line option there. So I like, hopefully, man, I'm gonna hold you to this. I'm hoping you're correct here because I need to bounce back as well. If not, then we're gonna have to move on there.
Yep.
Okay. My start of the week at the tight end position is Mo Alley-Cox for the Colts going up against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans give up the most fantasy points to tight ends. They have given up 34 receptions, 369 yards, and 4 touchdowns in just 5 games this season. Mo Alley-Cox is the number 1 tight end for the Colts. It is no longer Jack Doyle. Unfortunately, had a great run there with mostly Andrew Luck over the years, but just so many injuries for Jack Doyle. Unfortunately, he's just kind of a backup at this point. He has 6 catches on 9 targets for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns over the last 2 games, does Mo Alley Cox. So again, huge target in the red zone. I like, you mentioned Jonathan Taylor in this one. I think that's a great option as well. Once they get to the red zone, they have big bodies down there, and Carson generally looks for his tight end. So for me, Mo Alley Cox is going to be my tight end stream of the week. Jordan, off the cuff here, is there anybody else that you maybe had in the slot here for a start of the week that you took out last minute, or somebody that you really, almost made the cut here, but you didn't quite make the list officially? Anybody else you want to put a nod to for a start of the week this week?
I mean, these are the guys that I went with in terms of my gut. I'm confident in these guys. There's definitely some at the quarterback position. I mean, I kind of flipped between Brady and Ertz, but I decided not to go with the homer take of Ertz. But he obviously is a great option. You mentioned the 21 plus fantasy points each week so far. I think he's like QB 5 or 6 now. I think Herbert might have just passed him with that big game last week. So add to that the rushing floor and the ability to pass against this Buccaneers defense. I think Ertz is always a great option as well.
Okay. We'll be right back with our sits of the week and some QB tight end streamers as well. Here's a note from our new sponsor, Cara Factor. We'll be right back.
Hey TCK Potters and Fantasy Focus community. Are you looking for options for hair loss? There are many options out there for treating it. However, most products treat the cause, such as DHT, and don't do much to support the growth of new and stronger hair. It's like removing harmful weeds from your lawn, but not doing much to fertilize the grass. That's why the Fantasy Focus and TCK team has partnered with Cara Factor. Cara Factor saw this problem and focused their research on finding just the right combination of biosynthetic growth factors and an innovative delivery system to promote fuller, stronger looking hair. So whether you're a listener who suffers from various forms of alopecia or even stress-related hair loss, the Cara Factor treatment is the perfect scalp-friendly solution that can help and influence stronger and healthy hair throughout all stages of the hair life cycle. And now, exclusively for TCK listeners, use the promo code TCK at checkout to get 15% off all products at shop.mycarafactor.com. That's shop.mycarafactor.com. Cara Factor, skincare for hair.
All right, let's move into our sits of the week. We're going to go through every single position here, Jordan. We're just going to find a position, a player, or maybe a group of players from a particular position on a squad or something, but we're not going through each one. I'm going to let you go first here. Who is your sit of the week in week 6?
My sit of the week, just in case you haven't already been sitting them, is the Bears wide receivers.
Oh, this is such a bummer, dude. Damn it.
It's a bummer in that everyone coming in, myself included, I have Allen Robinson on too many teams that I'm happy to admit. Expected Allen Robinson to be, he's this QB-proof wide receiver. Look at all the quarterbacks he's played with. He'll be fine with Dalton or Fields when Fields takes over. Fields is going to be great, right? And then obviously Mooney was expected to be the breakout. He had a good end of the year last year. And so we're expecting big things from this Bears wide receiving core, which is why they're my start of the week. If you haven't yet woken up and turned around and said, hey, maybe I should pivot to other options. Now, I'm not saying you have to sit Robinson if your other option is Quez Watkins. I don't know why I always pick on him in this show, but I always do. You don't have to make that big of a pivot, right? But if you have like a Hunter Renfrow, if you got Kadarius Toney off the waiver wire, right? These are the types of pivots that you should be willing to make off of Robinson or Mooney. The Bears' offensive situation is extremely bleak. They're going to be probably starting rookie running back with Khalil Herbert. Montgomery's obviously out with the injury. Damian Williams now being put on the COVID through the COVID protocols. And also obviously whether it's Justin Fields or Dalton behind, it doesn't really make much of a difference because Green Bay's 10th in fantasy points against, given up to the wide receivers. So again, this is a defense that has been able to shut down wide receivers. Most of that is probably due to Jair Alexander, obviously. But even regardless, I mean, it's just a game that even though the Bears are likely going to be behind and passing a lot, it's not a good pie of passing volume that I want to have. So if I have any reliable pivot option, I'm moving off of Allen Robinson or Darnell Mooney this week.
This is so unfortunate, man. Allen, I did pretty well in my summer rundowns and research and predictions. And I mean, everybody missed on Allen Robinson. We just didn't see this coming. But I was a super proponent of doing it, even with Andy Dalton, even with a rookie Justin Fields coming in, contract year for him. He gets the franchise tag. I was just like, this is going to be it. He's too good to be bad. And it's just not been the case, man. Again, let's look at opportunity. We know the results have been terrible, but let's look at the actual numbers. Targets, 11 targets in week 1 versus the Rams. All right, it's the Rams. Whatever, wash it out. 4 targets against the Bengals, 6 against the Browns, 3 against the Lions, 5 last week against the Raiders. Fantasy finishes in PPR each week, 63, 49, 81, 54, and 60. Jordan, he's had one performance in PPR all season in the top 50. It's inexplainable, really, because they should be peppering him. Bill Lazor took over the play calling for the Bears, which I like as a move. I like that move. Matt Nagy's not the guy. Bill Lazor, I think, is a better mind here for this team. The problem is it's more of a, don't blow it offense. So they're not going to just run and gun here with Fields that we saw at Ohio State. They're all looking forward to. Khalil Herbert, as you mentioned, is doing well. Damian Williams is doing well. And Darnell Mooney is the number 1 wide receiver right now for the Bears, man. I'm holding on to Allen Robinson in the couple leagues I have him because you can't drop him just in case he's Allen Robinson. You definitely can't trade him because you're not going to get any value back. And, he's just on the bench for now. And this happens every year to somebody. It's really unfortunate. But Darnell Mooney is another guy that I was hoping would really break out. He's had some better games, but not really blowing up, man. This is frustrating.
Yeah, and as you're going through, first of all, as I was making the sit of the week, I wanted to say who's someone that I would sit even in a 3 wide receiver like flex league. Like I'm in a couple leagues where I start 3 wide receivers and I have a flex spot too, and I unfortunately have Allen Robinson in many of those leagues, and I'm not even flexing Allen Robinson in those leagues. Right? You read off the finishes. I think off the top of my head, the best one I heard was 41,
49,
49. So if you start 3 wide receivers in a 12-team league, there's your top 36 wide receivers. Even if you flex, you can obviously flex running backs too or tight ends, but even if you flex all wide receivers, that takes you down to 48, and 49 still doesn't cut it.
No, it's bad, and there's no touchdown upside. He's always been a volume guy, right? He's not a big play wide receiver in general. He's always been a touchdown and a volume guy, and they're just not happening. So you got to hold tight there, unfortunately. Some other guys I would rather start over Allen Robinson here, Jacoby Myers for the Patriots, Marvin Jones. All right, Odell Beckham, maybe one more week. Kadarius Toney looked very good. Jalen Waddle with Tua coming back. Maybe even Tim Patrick, Hunter Renfrow, AJ Green for the Cardinals there. It's ugly, unfortunately. All right, another frustrating name here recently and maybe moving forward in my sit of the week this week is Tyler Lockett. Now, this is tough, man. I was all Allen Robinson this summer. You were all Tyler Lockett. And Tyler Lockett worked out for the first 2 weeks for you. We had talked about it. Look, you drafted him. We're in like 4 leagues together or something. You drafted him in like the 5th or 6th league in every one of those leagues. And obviously it worked out for 2 weeks. But the last 3 weeks, dude, he's been unplayable. Now, of course, you started him because he's Tyler Lockett, but he's really let you down because of the performance. Now Russell Wilson is out, of course, for who knows, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, potentially 7, 6, 11 PPR fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. He had 26 and 32 in the first 2 weeks. We know Tyler Lockett's boom or bust, but it's drastic, dude. 26 and 32 points to 7, 6, and 11. That's horrendous. 112 total receiving yards the last 3 weeks combined after 278 over the first 2 weeks. The pass rush won't allow the deep throws for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mentioned it earlier with Najee Harris. The Seahawks are going across the country into Pittsburgh. West Coast teams traveling East Coast are much harder than East Coast teams traveling West because you have 3-hour earlier time difference, and the Seahawks traditionally are not as good on the East Coast there. Geno Smith is just not it. DK Metcalf was that guy down the stretch, caught the touchdown. Tyler Lockett could catch a 70-yard bomb any week, but he and Russell Wilson have an incredible mind meld, and you see all these incredible plays they have downfield. I just don't see it happening more than once, maybe a game with Geno Smith here. I have no Tyler Lockett shares, to be honest with you, because I was just off it this summer. If I did, he's a guy I would hope to move off of name brand. But unfortunately, I think too many people are kind of going to read the tea leaves here. You might be selling cheap, which I wouldn't do. But I'm not excited about Tyler Lockett, man. You're the Tyler Lockett guy from the summer. How are you feeling right now? Just a couple down games. You're waiting for the bombs. You believe in Geno Smith after, honestly, an impressive Thursday night last week against the Rams. Or is this panic mode for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's funny actually. I think it was 2 weeks ago in one of the leagues we're in. I think it's actually the listener league. I had Tyler Lockett as my flex because of where I drafted him in like 5th, 6th round. But I'd also picked up Mike Williams late, and this was obviously before Russell Wilson got hurt. And I put out a poll on Twitter. I was like, never thought I'd have to make this decision, but Lockett or Mike Williams? I don't know who I'm going with. Ended up going with Mike Williams, as most people on Twitter also thought I should. And Tyler Lockett put up like 3 for 30 or something like that. And I was like, that was his 6-point week. And I was like, all right, I made the right decision. And then that was the game Mike Williams had 1 catch for like, I was like
4 yards.
I made the wrong decision. But anyway, so in terms of like my outlook on Tyler Lockett, I mean, I'm obviously not as stoked to have him on my team anymore. But you mentioned I'm not trading him because you're not getting the value back. It's similar situation to Allen Robinson, where the name's there, the historical performance is there, but you're just not going to be able to trade him at the right value right now. Now, if he comes out and week 1 has a pretty good game with Geno Smith, then maybe you can look to move him if you don't think that's going to continue moving forward. That said, we're basing a Geno Smith, our Geno Smith takes off of like 1/2 or less of football against the Rams defense, where, yes, I mean, I do expect DK Metcalf to be Geno Smith's favorite target. I mean, how could a dude that size and that athleticism not be your number 1 target as a quarterback, as a backup quarterback? That said, I mean, there's a chance that Tyler Lockett just happens to be Geno Smith's target. I mean, maybe he does take that deep shot once a game and it does hit Tyler Lockett. But for the most part, I'm not too excited about it. But for now, it's just going to be a hold.
Fair enough. I'll throw this at you here real quick. Tyler Lockett plays at Pittsburgh this week, home next week against the Saints, home in week 8 against Jacksonville, and then the Seahawks have a bye in week 9. We'll know more about Russ, obviously, at that point. Let's assume Russ doesn't play the next 3 weeks and it's Geno Smith for the next 3 weeks, Steelers, Saints, and Jacksonville Jaguars. Over the next 3 weeks, Jordan, would you rather have Tyler Lockett or Brandon Cooks?
Top of my head, probably Brandon Cooks. I mean, obviously his quarterback situation isn't much better, but at least he's had a couple games with Mills now. I also don't know the matchups past this week for Houston. Obviously, I know they have the Colts this week, but for the most part, I mean, it doesn't get much worse. I mean, Pittsburgh defense is obviously pretty good against at least, putting pressure on Geno Smith. Saints have been on and off with their defense this year. So I'm not too excited about those matchups for Lockett, especially with, being paired with Geno Smith now.
Couple more. Adam Thielen or Tyler Lockett next 3 weeks?
I guess Adam Thielen. I mean, I was obviously out on him earlier this year, right? He was in the bold predictions and crazy calls. I didn't expect a lot out of him. The first couple weeks, he came out hot. Last couple weeks, my prediction seems to be a little bit more true, at least, of him just being the number 2 and not being able to produce at that same touchdown rate that he has in the past. But, I mean, Adam Thielen's still going to be one of Kirk Cousins' top targets, especially in the red zone. He looks to him a lot. So I'd probably take Thielen with the upside of probably a better offense with everyone still there, assuming no one gets hurt in Minnesota, and just the touchdown upside that I don't think Lockett has without that deep threat.
Okay, and Emmanuel Sanders. This one might seem silly because you're thinking like Emmanuel Sanders must be the 5th string wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. He's not. He's the number 2, and depending on the week, he might be the number 1 with Stephon Diggs coming down to earth this year. 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, Jordan. Would you rather have Emmanuel Sanders over the next 3 weeks or Tyler Lockett? I will tell you it's cheating a little bit. Emmanuel Sanders has a bye next week, so you can throw that out there. But over the next 2 of the next 3 games, Emmanuel Sanders in that potent Bills offense or Tyler Lockett with Geno Smith?
on a per game basis, I would rather have Emmanuel Sanders, obviously. Rest of season, though, I think I'd rather stick with Tyler Lockett. I think, obviously, with the possibility of Russell Wilson coming back, and then that's your fantasy playoffs, right? I certainly am not suggesting you go trade Tyler Lockett for Emmanuel Sanders.
Right.
But in a shell, if I happen to have Emmanuel Sanders on my bench in the league that I have Tyler Lockett, I might be swapping them out for 2 of the next 3 weeks.
Okay. Those are our sits of the week. Chicago Bears wide receivers, Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney. We just got to sit them until we see anything better. Hopefully, it's one of those like I sat them and then they blow up on your bench. We usually hate that. I am hoping for that this week. I'm hoping I sit TJ Hawkinson. I'm hoping I sit Allen Robinson or something for a better option because I'm worried about it and they blow up on my bench. Then you feel better moving forward. And then Tyler Lockett against the Steelers as well. All right, Jordan, we got 4 more players to get through. Let's bust them out here. I'll let you kick it off here. Who is your quarterback stream of the week? Now, these are not QB1s. These are not tight end ones. These are, bottom of the barrel. They're probably unavailable in super flex leagues because all quarterbacks are taken up. Yep. But in single quarterback leagues, who is somebody you're willing to take? Again, folks, let's remember here, you got 4 teams on bye this week. Zach Wilson and the Jets, whoever's the quarterback for the 49ers, Matt Ryan and Jameis Winston for the Falcons and Saints are all out on a bye this week. So you may have to go to the waiver wire. Who are you streaming this week, Jordan, at quarterback?
My stream of the week at the quarterback position is going to be Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars going up against Miami at home this week. Right now, Miami's 27th in fantasy points against for the quarterback position. They average giving up 22 points per week to the quarterback position. Just because it's off the top of my head, that's average or minimum Jalen Hurts game production, right? Jalen Hurts has put up 21 plus fantasy points. And that's what you're getting on average out of the quarterbacks against that have faced Miami so far this year. And the good thing that I want to look for in a streaming quarterback option usually is going to be the rushing floor, right? That's what makes a good rushing quarterback. But especially in a streamer, you want to be able to have that ability to break off a couple rushes, provide you that floor that, they're not going to, like a tight end streamer might give you a goose and put up 0 points, but they'll give you the rushing floor to not kill your week, but also have the upside to absolutely go crazy. And so Trevor Lawrence averages about 5 rush attempts per game. So with those 5 rush attempts per game, you have that floor enough to be able to confidently start Trevor Lawrence. And on top of that, Miami hasn't really played a mobile quarterback yet this year, with the exception, obviously, of Josh Allen. So when they played Josh Allen rushed for 35 yards. And obviously, I'm not suggesting that Trevor Lawrence is Josh Allen, but Josh Allen rushed for 35 rush yards that game. Miami's given up 51 all year to the quarterback position, but they just haven't played a mobile quarterback outside of Josh Allen. Last week, they played Tom Brady, and obviously Brady's not the most mobile quarterback, but also doesn't need it, right? Like, these quarterbacks are putting up 22-point fantasy weeks on average without the rushing floor. If you take that 22-point rush floor, you maybe knock off a couple points because of Trevor Lawrence not going to have the yardage or maybe the pass touchdown, but you're getting them right back plus some potentially with the rushing ability. And obviously, if you play in a 4-point passing touchdown league, Trevor Lawrence has a higher probability of running one in than most other quarterbacks that are available on your waiver wire.
I'll feel a lot better about Trevor Lawrence long-term after Urban Meyer's out of the picture. I think this kid's legit. I think the team is legit. They lost DJ Chark. They lost Travis Etienne. Their defense is horrendous. And I think the Jags are really turning a corner here. But Urban Meyer has done them no favors. So I do like Trevor Lawrence long-term, and hopefully he can pick it up. It'd be fun to watch Trevor and Tua go at it this week if Tua can get through it here. All right, my QB stream of the week is Taylor Heineke. Kansas City gives up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. He has been a QB1 in 3 of the last 4 games and QB15 on the season. I think that would be a kind of a trivia question there. Nobody would guess Taylor Heineke. QB15 on the season. Again, Ryan, Jameis, Wilson, Lance, and Garoppolo all on a bye this week. He's a nice super flex filler. I would not start him in single quarterbacks necessarily unless you had one of those guys on a bye, just because there's so many other options. But if you're stuck, and for some of the similar reasons you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence, Taylor Heineke kind of has a sneak attack rushing ability as well against Kansas City. And we know they're obviously going to be putting up points. Washington's defense has not been as good as we thought it was going to be. We're waiting on a game that Kelsey and Tyreek get well together. It's been one or the other because defenses this year are doing a great job shutting one of them down, which has flustered Mahomes. The Chiefs are 2-3. We'll see what happens in this game here, but this game's in Washington, D.C., and I think Taylor Heineke could surprise here. So he is my stream of the week at the quarterback position. Jordan, let's get into your tight end streamer.
Yeah, my tight end stream of the week. I made sure it was my only Eagle. I didn't want to go just full Eagles throughout here. I mean, of course, you could put the Eagles in every start of the week for every position. Actually, that's not even close to true, sadly. But I went with Zach Ertz. So obviously, Dallas Goedert being out due to COVID protocols. The biggest thing is everyone expected Zach Ertz to be out of Philadelphia this year. And everyone was on Dallas Goedert and his production levels with and without Zach Ertz and expected the huge breakout. And when you have these two tight end sets and both are as involved as they have been, you can't really have for fantasy, any sense of consistency or reliability from the tight end position for that team, unless you're like Gronk and Hernandez back in the day for the Patriots. So looking at the Eagles tight end as a whole, so if we take Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, call him Zach Goedert's from Dallas. I don't know. But you put those two together. Here's been their combined stat line. So week one, they combined for 6 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown against Atlanta. Second week against San Francisco, 3 catches for 30 yards. Then they played Dallas, 6 for 119 and 1. Kansas City, 11 for 116 and 1. And then last week against Carolina, 3 for 35. So 3 out of the 5 weeks, they've scored a touchdown. In those weeks, they've 2 weeks of over 10 catches combined, and obviously are putting up outside of those 2 weeks, they've had 3 weeks of 19 plus fantasy points from the tight end position. Now, I'm not going to say that Goddard is going to just swallow up all that volume. I think some of it will go to Devonta Smith. Some of it will be distributed to maybe Kenny Gainwell coming out of the backfield. But at least you see the potential slice of pie that Ertz could be getting here in 15 minutes. So if he's still available on your waiver wires and you need someone in the next 15 minutes, go ahead, pick him up, start him. Maybe you had Kyle Pitts, who's now on a bye, right? I just think Philadelphia and Hurts uses the tight end position enough for Ertz to be relevant, being the only tight end now available in that offense. So he's my stream of the week.
I like it. My stream of the week, and we'll finish this up, and then we'll do a rapid-fire Q&A. If you have any final questions, trade talk, start, sit, whatever, jump in the comments quickly. Jordan and I will blast those out after my tight end stream of the week, and it's Ricky Seals-Jones going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I just mentioned Taylor Heineke for the Washington football team. Ricky Seals-Jones filling in now for Logan Thomas, who is out on IR. Kansas City gives up the most fantasy points to quarterback. They give up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. They give up 296 passing yards per game. Their secondary is horrendous. Ricky Seals-Jones has 12 targets in the last 2 games. They will need to throw to keep up. He has end zone upside, no Curtis Samuel. We know that Logan Thomas was a nice option there, pretty much an auto start at tight end. Ricky Seals-Jones could be that guy as well. We've seen flashes of athleticism with him in the Cardinals over the years. If he's getting more work and volume, that's what we want for tight ends and touchdown upside. Other than Terry McLaurin, there's not really another pass-catching option outside of, I guess, J.D. McKissick. So I am comfortable with Ricky Seals-Jones floating out there as my tight end streamer if you need someone additionally. All right, let's get into some of the Q&A here, and we will get off and get into some Thursday Night Football. We got the Giants and Dodgers tonight as well, so we got a lot of activity going down here. I'm going to blast through these as quickly as we can. Jordan, I'll give you the question. You holler at me. We already got into Fragger's first question. Let's get into the second one here. What's up, Fragger? Thanks again for tuning in always, my man. Appreciate you. Do I trade Chris Carson for Darrell Henderson? I got both Patterson and Kamara on the bye. So Carson plays Pittsburgh. Darrell Henderson in a much, obviously, a better matchup overall against the Giants, but still pretty good against the run. Would you rather have Chris Carson or Darrell Henderson the rest of the season?
I think it's close enough to me to make this trade, especially because even though, yes, Carson does play Pittsburgh, but I also don't think he's guaranteed. I think he's still questionable to even play. So rest of the season, I mean, Henderson's actually been doing really well for the Rams. I think having both Kupp and Woods and Higbee and all the weapons that they have, the deep threats of Jackson and Jefferson, opens up the run game for Henderson and Michelle. But he's been doing well. He's been, pretty good for fantasy at least as well. So I think it's close enough that I'd be willing to make the trade, especially because if Carson doesn't play this week and you have both Kamara and Patterson on the bye, you might need that running back start this week.
Okay, lit fantasy. Do I start Mike Gesicki going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars or Dalton Schultz going up against the New England Patriots?
For me, I think this one actually might depend on who ends up starting for the Dolphins. In that Tua's first week back off of injury, Gesicki wasn't as involved with Tua as he has been with Brissett, right? That said, on the other side, Schultz has been really involved in Dallas's offense. They've been passing a lot, obviously. So it might depend on who starts for Miami, but I lean Schultz with potentially being able to start Gesicki if it's Brissett again.
It's Schultz for me easily. Let's go with Fragger here. You got another one. DST question quickly. Bengals versus the Colts. Bengals versus the Lions, Colts versus the Texans, or Cowboys versus the Patriots here. He's also got the Broncos playing the Raiders. Which of those 4 DSTs would you rather start this week, Jordan?
This week I'd go Bengals against Detroit.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Broncos against the Raiders. This one's in Denver. I want my DST at home and favored. I think that this distraction, although the Raiders will move on for the better, in my opinion, long term, this week has been a mess for them. The last 2 weeks, I think it's got in Derek Carr as well, and I just think that they might not be on all 4 cylinders, and that secondary is legit with the passer. So I'm going to actually stick with the Broncos there. Okay, Baby tuning in here. Let's see if he got back to me. No. So quickly, Gordon or Renfro with the flex, and let's just go Melvin or Renfro with the flex.
I mean, in a PPR, it's definitely Renfro. In standard, it's a little bit closer, but I think I'd still go Renfro as well. I think there's just more touchdown upside with Renfro than there is with Melvin Gordon.
Okay. Any chance it would be Josh Gordon over Renfro?
No.
Okay.
But if it is, then Renfro.
Got it. Beach tune in here. Needs to start 3. Evans, Pittman, Chase, and Allen.
Oh boy.
I'm sitting Pittman.
He plays Houston this week. Is that still sitting him?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's between. I mean, I made Jamar Chase my start of the week, so I guess I have to. So Evans, Jamar Chase, and Keenan Allen.
All right. And let's go here. I think we had one more. There we go. Here, do it quickly. I did reply in the comments in case you didn't hear me. Are y'all confident enough in the Bucs because I got Lamar in right now? Are you confident in Lamar versus the Chargers or Ertz right now against the Buccaneers?
Yeah, I think it's Lamar against the Chargers, just because I think Lamar's proven to be able to be effective against any type of defense, whether they're better against the pass or the rush. Like Lamar can do both. We saw him absolutely ball out on the pass. His pass ability last week. Ertz could easily struggle. I mean, he saved his week last week with 2 rush touchdowns, but for the most part, it's Lamar.
Okay, a couple more here. Beach back at it. Denver defense versus the Raiders or Chicago versus the Packers?
Denver.
Okay. Masha Mustafa, thank you for tuning in once again. Always appreciate your questions. I'm very conflicted right now. Please pick 3 this week in PPR. Zeke, Najee, Swift, and Jonathan Taylor. Yikes.
Whoa.
It's a hell of a league.
Yeah.
Who are you sitting in this bunch?
Trade one of these, but I guess I sit Swift.
Yeah. Wow. I'm trying to look at all these matchups here quickly. Man. Yeah. I'm playing Najee. I'm playing Jonathan Taylor. And I'm playing Zeke. I agree. I'm going to sit Swift as well. I would look to trade one of those guys, though, if you can. I can't imagine what your wide receivers look like. Fragger, do I trade Hawkinson for Joe Mixon and Gronk?
Yes.
I also have Knox. So you would
Yes.
have Knox and Gronk and Joe Mixon for Hawkinson.
Yes.
If you can trade Hawkinson for this kind of value, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yes.
All right. And Beach tuning in here. Appreciate the input. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for tuning in. And last one, Trey, Tannehill with A.J. Brown and Julio versus Buffalo, or Lawrence versus Miami. You just had Lawrence as your start of the week. Are you going with Lawrence if Julio plays?
Lawrence, my stream of the week, not start of the week. Brady was
Stream of the week. Stream of the week. Stream of the week.
I don't. If you have a top tier quarterback, do not start Lawrence over them. He's not my start of the week, but he is my stream of the week, and I think Tannehill is now in that streamer tier, right? He hasn't been performing as well as he had last year, and even with A.J. Brown and Julio back, I mean, Buffalo's defense is just so good.
Yep.
I'll roll with Lawrence against Miami.
Ooh. If we get Julio 100% and A.J. Brown 100%, I'm going to go with Tannehill. But if we don't, and we probably won't, then I'm going to go Lawrence there as well. I appreciate you tuning in, Trey, via YouTube. All right, y'all, that runs us over time a little bit here because of the questions. We always appreciate your Q&A questions. But look, you can get even more analysis every single Sunday morning. You can check us out, and you can hit us up on YouTube right here, streaming live, and we will get into your start sit every single Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific time, streaming live right here on YouTube. We also stream on Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, but you can use the option here to jump the line if you'd like to get in our super chat function on YouTube. Create a YouTube account via a Gmail account. Takes 2 seconds. Hit us up there. If you do not, and you stream on Twitch, which we know a lot of you do, obviously, then feel free to hit us up on Venmo with your contribution and your question at TCK Pod, TCK POD on Venmo. Shoot us your contribution, let us know your question, and we'll get to you in real time. Jordan Smith tunes in at just the nick of time here to get us a last question here. Waddle or Reagor? PPR.
Waddle.
I'm going to go Waddle as well. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you all so much. We got a lot of questions coming in, but we have to get out of here. So we appreciate you guys. Enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the baseball. Enjoy the football. We'll be back at you. This episode and all episodes of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast are brought to you by Bet Online and the Believe Podcast Networks. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Shouts out to our new sponsor, Cara Factor and the Jersey Jungle. We'll catch you next time right here on the TCK Pod. For Jordan Della Valle, I'm Sky Guasco, and we are out of here.